In business today, three things to know. First, Ferguson burning. We'll have an update on the violence following the grand jury decision not to indict the police officer who shot Michael Brown. And we'll look at the impact for small businesses caught up in the riots and the responsibility both insurance companies and the city may have. Then, a GDP pop. The third quarter gross domestic product has been revised up to 3.9%, but consumer confidence falls. And we're closing in on Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, and Cyber Monday. Ready, set, shop. Arise Exchange starts now. Hello, I'm Andrew Schmertz. Missouri Governor Jay Nixon is ordering more National Guard troops into the city of Ferguson in an effort to quell ongoing violence following a grand jury decision to not indict the police officer who killed Michael Brown in August. The mayor of Ferguson this afternoon blasted the governor for acting too slowly. The violence has so far led to at least 12 buildings being destroyed by fire and countless stores ransacked. More than 80 people have been arrested since the rioting began Monday. Arise correspondent Ruella Rouf is in Ferguson right now to bring us up to date. Ruella, what can you tell us?
Right now, I'm in front of the Ferguson Police Department, where protesters have taken to the streets for about 5 days now. Extra security has been called in by the National Guard. As you can see right behind me, they have started to line up and are prepared for the demonstrators that will be coming out here tonight.
There is criticism from the mayor, as you know, that the National Guard did not have a significant enough presence. Is that your sense of the last couple of days?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. There was criticism from the Ferguson mayor today that the National Guard was not put on the streets early enough and that they did not have enough of a presence. Is that your impression of the situation?
I definitely did not see guardsmen yesterday, but initially Governor Nixon did call them in only as a secondary role. So they would be providing security at the command post, at the fire station, other areas, so that officers could be here on the streets with protesters. So that was not a part of Governor Nixon's plan for the National Guard.
Ruella, thank you so much. Talk to you soon. The toll on businesses in Ferguson that serve the community is growing. Jay Kanzler is an attorney who represents one business owner who owns Sam's Meat Market and Ferguson Market in Liquor. He has been on Xchange before to talk about this, and we welcome him back to the show. Jay, can you give us an update on what your client's current situation is?
Well, I represent four businesses down here, and I'm down here in Ferguson now next to some of the burned-out buildings. Sam's Meat Market was almost a total loss from fire. Ferguson Market was badly looted, and they tried to start it on fire, and only because of a wonderful woman who put that fire out was that building saved. It was devastating for these businesses.
Yeah, I mean, this is the second time, obviously, your client has gone through this. What are his plans? Is he talking about what he wants to do next?
You know, these businesses have been down here, and especially Sam's and Ferguson Market, for many years. And to them, this is their home. These are their friends. But I don't know how you come back from this. I mean, obviously, they'll make the financial assessment. They will check to see if the building can be structurally, put back together, rebuilt. But even if they do, I don't know that this area ever becomes a place where people will want to come and do business again.
Jay, obviously you hold the rioters responsible, no question about that. But do you have any sense of how else to recover money besides from the insurance companies?
You know, they have some of the folks will have insurance policies, some will not. At some point, the government has got to step up and be held responsible for their lack of protection. Each and every time, these businesses have been promised, absolutely promised, that this would not happen. And each and every time, no one was there when the rioting started.
Jay, ahead of any possible legal action, have you heard from either the state or the city at all as to whether they may step up and voluntarily provide some economic assistance?
Local government has been very generous. Some of the municipalities and the county government in trying to help out along the way. it's too early to see what they will do this go around, but they're going to have to do something. It was 3, 4, 5 times as bad as it was last time, and the damage and the devastation is indescribable.
Finally, are your clients themselves safe right now?
Everyone is safe. Everyone is sad, and some are a little angry, but, thanking God that they are well.
Okay, Jay Kanzler, thank you so much. We wish you and, of course, your clients the best of luck.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So who ultimately pays the price for when the state cannot protect businesses and people from civil unrest? Mike Barry is a vice president with the Insurance Information Institute, a group that represents insurance companies. Welcome back to Arise Exchange. First, talking about Ferguson, you are on the ground there. Your groups are on the ground there. What are you hearing?
It dovetails with what the attorney was just saying, is that last night was worse in terms of damages than in August. I was also talking with the Missouri Insurance Coalition, which represents property insurers in the state of Missouri, and they were saying not only was it worse, but maybe different kind of coverage is kicking in now. But the short answer for people who are impacted by this, most of whom will have business owners policies, or BOP is the acronym, is that you're covered for riot-caused damage, for civil commotion.
You are covered
yes.
for that, because sometimes when I read the policies, there's a whole bunch of exclusions that refer to war, for example, or government action. This does not fall under an exclusion?
It does not, and the businesses that were impacted back in August were also covered. I mean, fire, vandalism, theft, looting. If your business is directly impacted and has to close down for days or weeks, there's a provision in the BOP policy, business owners policy, that talks to business interruption coverage or BI coverage.
How does insurance companies now mobilize into the area, similar with a natural disaster, except this one, of course, man-made, to get the information to its clients?
Well, it's a comparable situation. I was reading one of the trades on the way here today, National Underwriter reporting adjusters coming into Ferguson today. I mean, so here we are on Tuesday. It happened on Monday night, so you already have adjusters on the scene there.
Was there talk in August of some insurance companies possibly dropping companies? Because, we see that again in natural disaster areas. Does the insurance industry have a risk matrix for areas that may have civil unrest?
Well, there's very narrow ways an insurance company can drop you. Just because I filed a claim in August and now it's November, I can't drop you. However, I can non-renew you at the end of the policy period, and that's one of the things that may play out. There may be some commercial insurers who will say, hey, look, twice in a period of months, maybe I don't want to underwrite commercial risks in this neighborhood, but insurers have to see it through to the end of the policy year.
How quickly can money get in the hands of businesses that have been disrupted? Small businesses, this is their livelihood.
Yeah, oftentimes, I mean, the insurance industry, the private sector, they see themselves as the economic first responders. So after a hurricane, they come in with a checkbook and say, look, here's a X number of dollars, go find yourself some housing. They're, in all likelihood, I don't know for a fact whether they were doing that today, but there are adjusters there today, and I'm sure they can do something comparable.
In the insurance industry, you have something called subrogation, where you go
Correct.
after the wrong parties. You're probably not going to get money from the rioters, but is there a question that the city, can you go after the city? Can you go after the state of Missouri? Can you go after the National Guard?
Well, I think it's conceivable they could go down that path. I think for the policyholder's perspective, it's the insurers looking at the policy and saying, is it covered? The policyholders, if in fact it is, the policyholder is going to see the money and let the insurance company figure out subrogation if in fact they want to go down that path.
And you think that they might try to do that? Have you heard any news about that?
I have
way
not.
too early
Yes.
to talk about that.
Yeah, I think one of the other stories I was reading in the New York Times this morning, they were talking about, well, why was the announcement made at night, for instance? If you could have held that information until, say, 9 in the morning, would this have played out the same way with X number of daylight hours for the population to absorb the news?
Any sense, way too early, any sense of how much this is going to cost the industry?
No, it's way too early, but again, the number will be higher than in August, so we're talking probably, whereas August was hundreds of thousands, it is conceivable it might break the $1 million threshold.
And so for business owners to get in touch basically with their insurance carrier or agent as quickly as possible?
Yes, definitely report any losses that you have. The adjuster will get out there, and the claim will be processed as expeditiously as quickly as possible.
Okay, Mike Barry from the Insurance Information Institute, thank you so much for your help today.
Good to be here.
Turning to now some economic news. The U.S. economy did better than originally reported for the third quarter. The third quarter GDP growth was revised up to 3.9%, according to the Commerce Department. That's 0.4% above the original figure. That pushed the Dow modestly higher for the day. Let's take a look at the final numbers. The Dow, I take it back. The Dow actually slipped in the final 30 minutes of trading, down nearly 3 points. The S&P 500 in the red. The NASDAQ up a little bit, but mostly a quiet day on Wall Street. Some major earnings reports still coming out. Hewlett-Packard reported third quarter revenue of $28 billion. That missed expectations by 2%. Earnings per share of $1.06, in line, though, with consensus estimates. Campbell Soup reporting it slightly beat earnings expectations in the first quarter of its fiscal year. Revenue of $2.25 billion was 2% above estimates. And Tiffany reporting same-store third quarter sales increased year over year. EPS coming in at 76 cents. Let's take a look at commodities. Gold up 360, but look at oil down another $1.93. That's below $74 a barrel. OPEC meeting in Vienna on Thursday. It'll be interesting to see what they decide. A couple of other economic numbers. Consumer confidence down this month to its lowest level since June. And single-family home prices went up more than expected in September, according to the S&P Case-Shiller Composite Index. And coming up, John Manley will be here to talk about the GDP and consumer confidence and more. And later, when a brand goes bad, think Bill Cosby. You're watching Arise Exchange. Stay with us.
The search continues for the more than 200 abducted schoolgirls.
Unquestionably, this is a Nigerian problem.
President Barack Obama stopped short of visiting the border. Why can't Washington get anything done when it comes to immigration reform?
But you got to come up with a solution to it, and no one has a real solution.
Does this further terrorize people, make them more afraid, or is this making people angry? Hello and welcome to Arise America. I'm Debbie Turner-Bell.
Global. It's Monday, so it must be time for a new round of sanctions against Russia. Nigeria is open for business, and you are getting a handle on this situation. Compelling. Time for liquid lunch, things that make us want to drink. Could she have been separated at birth from, say, Grimace? All business.
Money's coming out of these countries, and that flow is part of what's driving the equity markets.
Entertaining money daily.
It's about reimagining.
Arise Exchange. Welcome back to Arise Exchange. A busy week for economic numbers ahead of the holiday. John Manley is Chief Equity Strategist at Wells Fargo Funds Management to talk to us and break down the numbers. John, welcome back to Arise Exchange. As always, we got a nice revision up on the GDP. It has swung from but barely growing in the first quarter to now a pretty substantial gain. What to make of that?
Well, some of it was weather in the first quarter. Again, these numbers sort of rob Peter to pay Paul sometimes. But I think the number was pretty good. When they revised it, it isn't puff. It isn't inventory bill, which always comes back at you, usually comes back at you. It's real spending. People are starting to invest again. They're starting to hire people. And as they call it, the house to jack bill, it starts, the money starts to move around. The pumps are working.
Do you get a sense of where is the strongest components of the GDP?
I think the most interesting and exciting is probably the capital expansion, the industrial side. I think that people are building capacity because I think they see the potential for more consumers to be consuming more things, and they want to be ready for it.
As someone, just as a layman, just looking at GDP numbers and that they get revised either up or down, does that should that shake our confidence in how the government comes up with these numbers, or is it simply a big economy and it takes a lot of counting?
It's a big economy. It's a lot of moving parts. It's sampling. It's trying to get your hands around something that's enormous. It's like trying to imagine having to draw a map of the United States every month or every quarter and get it basically right. That's very hard to do. So, obviously there are inaccuracies. It's not perfect, but I think it's a pretty good measure. There's nothing to make me think it's not consistently inaccurate. If there were inconsistent inaccuracies, I'd be more worried. I think it's pretty good. I think it's very good, actually, but I think, the inaccuracies when they exist are probably systemic and don't really hide what's going on.
Okay, so now that you take that number and you look at the fourth quarter and you look at things like oil prices coming down and the possibility that shopping will be decent and some wages may be going up. Do we continue on a strong path of the GDP for the fourth quarter?
You just made the best case I've heard in a long time. Just put all those things together. What do you think happens?
We like to spend money in this country, don't we? Once we have money in our pockets, consumers spend it.
This is America. This is why our ancestors came here, or we came here. I mean, we're a very consumerist country, and I think it's our nature, and we revert to it. And only when we're interrupted, only when we have things like 2008 and 2009 where the pipes are broken, we can't get the money. What's our house worth? Other than that, we tend to spend. So I think the Fed had to stabilize the housing market, patch the pipes, and then just let the consumer do his or her thing. And I think it's beginning to work its way through the system. It's starting to function the way it should.
Okay, so now if you sit on the Fed and you look at the GDP numbers, the next question comes is, at what point does the economy become too hot? We're not there yet, sir. Interest rates is the obvious question.
Well, I think you probably err on the side of the angels. I think you'd rather have it run hot for 3 months than get 1 month ahead of it and knock it on its keister. I mean, I think that what you really built-in momentum
and systemic momentum.
Well,
right? That things
think
are
so.
in the great
and
move.
and then even then the Fed doesn't tighten. The Fed just sort of raises rates as the economy gets stronger at the beginning. It's only much later on when they sense a real present danger of inflation that they try and get ahead above the natural rate. And I don't think that's with us for a while.
Okay, final question about the equity markets between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
All the sleepyheads who didn't put money in their 401ks tend to do it now, and then they do it again in January. The early birds come in January, and I think it's myths on Wall Street that we like to believe in. But the fundamentals are still very good. It's not a bad seasonal period, and the fundamentals, the Fed, the earnings, and the valuations are all fine at this point in time.
Hey, John Manley from Wells Fargo Funds Management. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Same to you. Thanks.
Time now for our business ticker stories making headlines across the nation and the world. Honda in the hot seat. The Japanese automaker admits it did not tell U.S. safety regulators about more than 1,700 claims of injuries and death related to its vehicles since 2003. Honda blames incorrect numbers from a third-party company's bad audit. The statement says its response to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, which has demanded Honda explain why it did not report the deaths and injuries as is legally required. Apple is 2/3 of the way to becoming a $1 trillion company. It's the first company to hit a market valuation over $700 billion. That's double the value since CEO Tim Cook took the helm 3 years ago, just before Steve Jobs died. Apple, get this, is now bigger than the GDP of all but 19 countries in the world. And the government plans to make us feel more guilty when we have that extra muffin in the morning. The Food and Drug Administration has rolled out new requirements for displaying calorie counts everywhere, from movie theaters to salad bars. The new regulations require restaurants with more than 20 locations to clearly display the calories in the products and are meant to keep an increasingly obese American population a little more weight conscious. From Bill Cosby to Uber, brands are taking a big hit. How, if at all, can they ever recover? Pepper Miller, president of the Hunter Miller Group, joins us to talk about Bill Cosby, Uber, and we'll even talk about Budweiser and those Clydesdale horses. But let's start with Bill Cosby, Pepper. What is, besides the whole legal issues that he is facing, right now, is there anything he can do to sort of salvage his business?
Well, hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Good to see you again, Pepper.
You know, first of all, he needs to get he needs some help with the crisis management. That I think that would help him at one thing. But, you know, he's gone from being this wholesome America's TV dad to a serial rapist. So he's badly tarnished. I think his brand as we knew it, this wholesome, authentic, very distinctive, you know, very influential brand has been tarnished, and that's done. He still has some supporters because so many people want to believe. I think the Janice Dickinson, beautiful woman back in her day, who came out with this strong story, and her story made news in several media. She also has her own branding issues. So people believe that she's an opportunist. She was an opportunist then. She's an opportunist now. So he's going to garner still some support in that area. But he's done. I mean, when you look at Bill Cosby and think about him today, you're going to think serial rapist. So it's too bad. Very, very, very sad. But
and Pepper, when people connect themselves to an individual who becomes a brand, there really is a downside risk here. It's not like a company that can recover because it's a faceless company, correct? If you either work for an individual or you have business relationships with an individual, I'm thinking Bill Cosby. For a while, I was thinking Martha Stewart when she was in jail. And of course, athletes that get into trouble.
Yeah. You know, that's a good point. And I do think on the flip side of that, though, it is the attachment. You bring up a good point. The attachment to Bill Cosby, as you know, in your own space, that is the reason why he still has a lot of supporters. because he's a much part of my life. He's been with me all my life. He's my other dad. These are some of the things that we've been hearing from the people. So if your own father was accused of that, the first thing you want to do is definitely do pushback and support your your own father. So you raise a very, very good point, and that's exactly true.
Pepper, I want to move on to Uber because we're going to run out of time soon. So Uber has a different situation where, of course, an executive talking about blackmailing a reporter possibly. If you are running Uber today, how do you have and try to recover their brand image? They are so strong, but they're coming across as cocky and arrogant.
Well, there's two things going on with Uber. He's got this branding image, definitely, yes, with consumers, but consumers who use Uber think Uber is so freaking cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. They've got Spotify now, so you can listen to your music in the car. So on the ground level, it's like, he shouldn't have said that. I think he was, just talking a lot of stuff at this dinner party. He didn't know it was going to be recorded or taken away, so we'll give him a pass. But on the other hand, he's still trying to build a brand. They're a $25 billion company today. And so they want to grow this brand, and he has to think about investors and alliances in the tech and transportation space. So that's where it becomes a little tricky, and he's got to be a little bit more humble and apologize. And
in today's world, you can fall pretty hard. Pepper Miller, president of the Hunter Miller Group. Good to see you again, Pepper. Nice talking with you. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too. My pleasure.
Ahead, our favorite person of the day. You're watching Arise Exchange.
There is a reason Africa is called the new frontier. What was once potential is now an opportunity ready to be seized. Once revered for our resources, today's wealth lies in our people. People who build the cities that shape the future. People who know an idea in one place means business in another. A generation for whom technology means there are no borders, no boundaries. We are the new lions in a brave new world, kings of the urban jungle. And there's a bank that puts the world in our pocket and the future in our hands. UBA, Africa's global bank.
Time for our favorite person of the day when we pick one person who grabbed our attention, and not for the right reasons. Today, it is 17-year-old Alexa Nicole De Arma, who allegedly ran a prostitution ring from her Facebook page. Police say the young entrepreneur from Venice, Florida, engaged in human trafficking by arranging prostitution between older men and underage girls. In one case, De Arma allegedly set up a meeting between a 21-year-old man and a 15-year-old. The man paid $40 and a bottle of alcohol. She's allegedly colluded with other teens as well on her Facebook page, boasting that she could find young girls for men, including virgins. De Arma was apparently turned in by girls at another high school who De Arma tried to recruit. And so Alexa De Arma is, without a doubt, our favorite person of the day. Coming up, gearing up for the biggest shopping weekend of the holiday season. You're watching Arise Exchange.
Apple unveiled new products today. Did it meet expectations?
Apple stock is up 20%.
The White House says it has proper measures to contain the spread of Ebola.
This seems to be, in some ways, exploding. What are officials saying?
We remain focused on working with our partners on the ground to stop the epidemic.
Enhanced measures have been put in place in Africa and the United States.
This is hitting home in a very real way, and I think, we need to be concerned.
Hello and welcome to Arise America. I'm Debbie Turner-Bell.
In our retail rodeo this week, the holiday shopping season is underway, and sales are expected to grow by more than 4% to nearly $617 billion. According to the National Retail Federation,
Which retailers will be the biggest winners and losers? Let's bring in Burt Flickinger. He is the managing director at the Strategic Resource Group and our go-to person when we talk about retail. I want to start with the serious issue of Ferguson, because there's talk that there's going to be a nationwide boycott of Black Friday the day after Thanksgiving. Are you hearing anything on the ground about retailers being concerned?
Not now, but in St. Louis County, in the East St. Louis itself, would be a concern as well as a national concern, because so much more of the business is done on Black Friday, about $90 billion versus the next day $60 billion, and the following Sunday about $30 billion.
Is it true there's that dramatic of a drop-off from Friday to the following week?
Yes, because Black Friday is really a 24-hour shopping sport as opposed to people.
We were talking about this downstairs in the newsroom earlier. Is Black Friday designed a little bit that it praise maybe not the right word, but it encourages lower income people, that the luxury stores aren't as interested in being open on Friday?
Yes, so to your discussion with your team, you have Nordstrom's not open on Thanksgiving Day, more limited hours on Black Friday. The same with Dillard, same with Tiffany, which you just reported, very strong earnings, versus Walmart being 24 hours and Kmart running long hours to compete with Walmart.
Okay, so let's talk about your expectations. You know, we discussed it on the show. The GDP is up. Consumers are apparently spending a little bit more. How do you see the environment?
See it being a good year, not a great year, Andrew, up about 3.2%, a little bit lower than the National Retail Federation. But shoppers are still struggling. So the dollar stores, particularly Dollar General, will do well. But people are buying for family members and immediate friends, but they're not stretching the way
they're not being as generous as they.
Being as generous as they can, but to your point, not extra generous just because the spending power, purchasing power isn't there as much.
I kind of think retailers are pretty excited by lower gas prices on both sides. First, more money in the consumers' pockets, and second, potentially less expensive to ship goods into their stores.
You're completely correct on both counts, and then the retailers also have the benefit of lower clothing prices. Clothes will be the #1 gift-giving item, about 61%. So cotton prices, as you've reported in other broadcasts, have declined 65% the last 3 crop years. So consumers get the benefit of lower prices on clothes, and the retailers still get a good promotional gross profit.
Are there any specific segments? It's interesting about retailers and clothing. I didn't think about that. Any specific segments that you think are going to be particularly strong and particularly lousy?
Particularly lousy is going to be the less well-capitalized retailers. So the Sears Kmart combination, Radio Shack, Toys R Us is going to have a tough time. They're doing everything right, but consumer trends to mobile.
How is Radio Shack? I mean, still in business. I mean, I walked past the one in Columbus Circle here, and I have yet to see anybody ever inside of it, even to buy batteries. Right. You know, I mean, can Radio Shack survive much longer?
You're right. It's going to have a tough time. When we were on our way to Mall of Dubai and just needed a few things that Radio Shack should have, they don't have, so they've lost their retail relevance.
And Sears as well continues to have some challenges.
Sears has some challenges, but the last 2 big storms may have been the storms that saved Sears for at least a month, so they can get deeper into next year. But you're right, Sears on the apparel side having some challenges, and on the appliances side really getting hit hard by Home Depot.
We have about 45 seconds left. Kmart, I understand, is opening at 6 a.m. on Thanksgiving. Your thoughts about these stores being open on Thanksgiving to begin with? I mean, unless you want to have your Thanksgiving dinner at Kmart, who are they attracting?
They're really just attracting people who don't like crowds. It's the old Yogi Berra baseball analogy about going to places where people don't go. So Kmart's longer hours simply to save itself. But you're right. It's may not make a difference.
I guess the theory is your asset is your big building, right?
Yeah.
And especially challenged against the internet. When it's not open, it's not making money for you. And so if you can open it and pay a little bit in salaries, it's worth it.
Yeah, and they also get some extra hours compared to Target that's making a big comeback too. So competitively, Kmart's doing everything it can.
Okay, Burt Flickinger, thank you so much. We'll
Thank
talk to
you,
you after
Andrew.
the holiday. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too, thank you.
Coming up on Arise Exchange tomorrow, what to expect if you're one of the millions hitting the roads or the airs for Thanksgiving. We'll look at the weather and we'll look at all of the traffic out there. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arise Exchange. Good night.